So last week ended up being not quite as productive as I'd hoped, just because of Thanksgiving activities taking up some of my time. And I'm looking at the calendar and I'm like, I know that next month I'm going to be kind of in the same boat with Christmas activities. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start ramping down this documentation series a little bit earlier than I'd expected. I had been thinking probably in early to mid-January, like I would, stop doing a monthly dev stream, stop doing weekly videos, maybe reduce the frequency of the text blogs. I think I'm going to go ahead and do that immediately, mostly just because, I need to look for as many days as I can get back if I know that I'm going to be losing some time to the holidays. But then also I'm thinking when I was getting close to finishing Gunmetal Arcadia 0, I was reaching a point where it felt like every week I was kind of having to really reach for something to write about and do a video about. So I'm thinking, if I'm going to be in the same boat, if I know that I'm going to be reaching for content, and I'm looking for places where I can make up some lost time, it's win-win to go ahead and ramp this stuff down as early as possible. So this will probably be the last weekly scheduled video. I might do another if I have something interesting to show with the legacy system next month. I'll probably do a text blog as I get closer to launch. But I'm going to be sort of reducing the frequency of these, if not stopping them entirely, over the next month. Along with that, I'll also be turning off monthly Patreon payments. Of course, I will still honor all the existing rewards there, but since the purpose of that campaign was to help make up the difference in the time I was losing doing videos and doing text blogs, it makes sense to go ahead and turn that off at the same time. It feels like that'll be a little bit of a weight off, just with about 2 months left in development. It's starting to feel like, man, where's the time going? But let's see, I guess as of last Thursday's blog, I said the item count was up to 76. It's still 76. I haven't added anything new since then, because last Friday was sort of all about getting a DRM-free Franken build if you have to win the game put together, so I could upload that to itch.io. But the set of items I feel really good about. I do have 76 items now. Most of those don't have art, names, descriptions, cost, any of that stuff. So, the last 3 days of this month are going to be sort of mass content production to get all that stuff done. But I feel like those cover a really good spectrum. There's a lot of things that are just stat upgrades. I'll talk a little bit about some of the changes I'm having to make to account for those. But there are also upgrades to bombs. I showed the upgrade that makes your bombs do a bigger explosion and more damage. But there's also there's one that makes bombs sort of bounce around. There's one that makes bombs explode when they touch an enemy. So that's kind of fun. It's useful because you can just aim bombs directly at enemies. But also if you're standing right in front of someone and you throw it, it might blow up and hurt you right there. So you kind of have to be careful of what context you use those in. There's a few items that just sort of immediately give you some bonus, but not necessarily a permanent lasting bonus. There's one that just drops a whole bunch of coins right there. There's one that gives you a bunch of shields on your health bar. So there's just a pretty wide spectrum of cool things that can happen with those. And that was my goal, and I'm really happy with where it's ended up. I think my minimum target was I want to have 60 items in the game, so having 76, that's a really good place to be. But I was saying stat upgrades have kind of ended up moving in a different direction than I expected. What I realized was when every item goes in your inventory and is something that you can equip and unequip, that starts to, well, for one thing, it bloats your inventory, and it bloats your inventory with things that you really never have a reason to interact with. When you're talking about an item that increases your damage, why would you ever voluntarily choose to unequip that? So what I've done is, for things like stat upgrades, those are now hidden from the inventory. What that means, though, is that it becomes easy to lose track of those. Wait, didn't I pick up something that gave me bonus damage? How do I see that now? So sometime in these last 3 days, I'm going to make a change to the stats screen so that stat boosts appear somewhere. And I'm thinking something like the the tick marks for stats, like in Binding of Isaac. So I'll probably end up doing something like that. But yeah, it's that was sort of like an unexpected last minute feature change that I had not accounted for. But yeah, the stat boosts cover a pretty wide range of things now. There are 3 different ways that you can upgrade your damage. There is base damage, damage multiplier, and bonus damage. So the way that works is your weapon has its own base damage. Base damage modifiers get added to that. The damage multiplier multiplies that, and then the bonus damage is added to that multiplied value. So, if you wrote out the math formula, it would be like base damage times damage multiplier in parentheses plus bonus damage. And that lets me sort of weight those item drops differently. So, maybe bonus damage shows up more frequently because it's not making as dramatic of a change, that sort of thing. So yeah, there's 3 ways you can upgrade your damage. There is modifiers to foot speed, modifiers to jump height. Just recently I added modifiers to attack rate, which is really cool. And actually makes a big difference depending on what weapon you're using. Right now, the best weapons in the game have been the very fast weapons. Even though they don't have a very good range, they, if a weapon is fast enough, it's sort of like you can attack again before an enemy's stun timer runs out, then you can basically just stun lock them. So in Zero and historically in the roguelike game, the best items the best weapons are the ones that are very fast once you get them powered up enough to where their DPS is comparable to some of the other stronger weapons. Now there's sort of another avenue you can take there, which is you start with one of the stronger, slower weapons that has a larger range, but you increase your attack rate and get it to the point where, okay, now it's hitting fast enough that I can again start to stun lock enemies. So there's a few ways that you can upgrade those. Inertia, I still only have one item that affects that. That's like air control, ground control. So there's only the one item, the one that was in Zero. I think I called it Surefoot. I was going to have that be something that could incrementally increase, but it didn't feel like it was making a really perceptible change. And I don't know, it was just, I think, the least interesting of all those stat upgrades. So I've just left that as one item there. The vendor upgrade paths are starting to feel actually really cool and meaningful now. Because the sigils are working. So if you take the Gunmetal Vanguard sigils, those increase your damage multiplier. If you take the Seekers of Arcadia sigils, those increase your jump speed, or your jump height and your foot speed. So it's sort of choosing whether you want to be more of like high damage tank or like highly mobile athletic sort of class. And I think that once I have the legacy events in there next month, hopefully that should feel like even a more meaningful change. Maybe it's like, okay, you collected this many sigils from the Gunmetal Vanguard, so now when you encounter them on your next session, they will have 2 items in stock instead of just 1, that sort of thing. And 2, the items that each of them carries are specifically chosen to sort of complement that type of class. So the Gunmetal Vanguard, they carry more items that are good for that sort of high damage tank class, and vice versa. So yeah, I think that's starting to actually feel like that sort of really cool, meaningful choice, which was the promise from way back when. So that's cool. But yeah, items feel like they're in a really good place. There's still a lot of content production left to do. Still that status menu displaying stat boosts and stuff. But yeah, I'm really happy with how those have turned out. Giving myself 1 month to do items was a little bit scary, but it's turned out pretty well, and I think having a month to do legacy events in December is going to be pretty good too. So yeah, and then whatever time I can make up by ramping down the documentation side of things, I think that's just going to put the game in a better state. As always, thanks for watching. The series was supported through Patreon. I want to give a shout out to patrons Jace, Benjamin, and Opine and Nana for their contributions. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. I also put 2 secret items in the game that have a very, very low drop rate, and that's all I'm going to say about that.